Well, good morning everybody. My name is Dr. J.D. Swanson. I'm the author of Karate Science. And what I'd like to do today is carry on with our last part of Heian Sandan. Over the last sort of week or so, we've been going through the kata in three different parts. The first part, what we covered was the uchuke and then the double block. From there, we covered going up the line, right? The marote, the tate nukete, the rotations, the tetsui, and then to the oizuki. From here, what I'd like to do today is cover the yoko fumakomageris, the arakenuchis, and then of course into the double technique at the end. So without further ado, let's get started. Us. Good, so to warm up, let's just from here take our technique and just practice through the kata, right? So moving through, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So what I'd like you to do is just practice that. Go through it 10, 15 times. Make sure that you've started to incorporate some of the principles that we've talked about already into the kata, right? Otherwise, it's a waste of time. If you just go through the kata and don't improve it, you're just going through the kata wrong. So make sure that you go through and just practice, practice, practice. And then what we'll do is let's carry on with the rest. Very good. Okay, so now let's move on with the next part. You're in the oizuki. Just finished. So from here what we've got is we've got this nice little rotation up. So the feeling is as you step, just feel, expand. This nice feeling. Don't lean with your body, don't do this. Just feel straight, warm and up. Nice, smooth. One breath, this feeling. 1 and up. Once you're ready for it, just let the arms naturally loop. Whoa. This one's going to turn this way, this is going to turn that way. This is very common within the kata. So it's going to be here, turn, and it all finishes together. Feel, up. Try not to have happy feet as you move. 1, smooth, gradual, up, like so. This final position, this position with hands on hips, should be as if I'm standing against a wall. I'm pushing with these two knuckles into the squidgy bits, well, not so squidgy, the squidgy bits between your hip and your rib cage. And what you would do is you would simply stand against a wall and your elbows would touch the wall. This is what I'm going to call the neutral position, is this position here. My hips are square, my shoulders are touching, my elbows are touching, and my hands are actively pushing into the squidgy bits of my body. So with that, what I'd like you to do is practice simply that standing position. From the oizuki, practice it first, no hands. Practice it, no hands with breath. And then with breath and hands. Give that a go. Excellent. Okay, now from here we're up to the yoko fumakomageris. So there's multiple ways to do this by association. From here I'm going to show you two major ways of doing it, but I'm going to show you some important principles for the way I do it. I do it as a simple knee lift and then dropping down. That's the way I was taught. I know there are versions with crescent kicks in there, with Migazuki Geri, but to be honest, I do mine simply as a knee lift, covering the groin and then dropping my body down. That's more sort of common, I feel, and to me it adds the feeling for what I want for the kata. So as you're here, once you're in this position, the thing that you want to remember for me is that this is all hip and rotational movement. The leg almost plays no part other than lifting. All the rest of it is I'm simply using gravity to drop my body. So as I'm here, all I want to think about is this idea of lifting my knee, making sure that my knee is covering my groin, so it's lifting to the center, not out here going, hi guys, here, this feeling. From here now, I simply use, and my foot is up and lifted. From here, I simply just drop my hip, turn my hip down. This feeling. So it's not this sort of here, and then I'm just going to sort of fall like timber, this kind of feeling. It's more definitive. What I'm doing is I'm turning my hip and allowing my technique to drop. The way that I learned this was actually with one of my instructors, Goran Gluchina, was this idea of he would actually come around behind, grab me by the hips, and screw my hips into the ground, just pushing it round and down. And that's the feeling that you want. As I go, I simply screw my hips down into the ground. I screw my hips down into the ground like so, into Kibadachi. And that's going to be important for a little while later. So what I want you to do first is just practice from here. 1, 2. Then the other leg. 1, 2. 1, 2. Just that feeling. The other thing as well is have the feeling that you're not extending this leg and landing. Simply, this just remains, as my leg drops, it still remains, and my whole body falls into this ready-made landing here for myself. So it's very, very easy here. Feeling lift, then down. That nice, solid, heavy approach. What I'd like you to do is practice that, then we'll move into some of the nuances from there. Give it a go. Excellent. Okay, so you've practiced that. Now let's think about the technique. So the other piece that's in there is we have heiwanuke, right? We have this block here, right? Again, it's stylized in the kata to sit on the hip, but in reality it would be just off the body like so. So it's stylized in the kata here. Because I'm making a block, what happens is I want to make sure that I've got this position here, right, is connected in. So if I sit with my hips square, if you think of Kibadachi, and maybe I'll do a Tiki Kata version or Tiki Kata description one day soon. But when I'm here, you have got movement in your hips. Hami, shomen, hami. It's very subtle, it's not big, but it's basically as far as I can push my knee forward, allows me this room in my hip. So what I want to do is I want to make uchuke. If you make uchuke to the side, like in, say, Tiki or what have you, you'll notice that your body can actually move into these positions. Right? For this case, we're making a block this way. So allow yourself not to be here in neutral and sort of shove your shoulder forward, which is very unnatural and very weak. Rather simply, just turn your hip forward so it covers your body line. If I'm here in the neutral position, it covers. If I bring my shoulder just forward to the center and turn my hip, that covers the technique. That makes us into a very strong position. You see all sorts in the world today. You see people, this kind of stuff. You see people throw their shoulder forward. It shouldn't break out of the basic biomechanics. Feel neutral here and simply push a little bit forward just to where you feel it connect. You'll feel it in your body. Any further, I lose my back. Here, I can feel it centered and strong. Then just turn your hip. Use your body to make the stinking block. So when you're coming down, the feeling is that I lift, if I can get my balance ever, as I lift, I drop, and I drop into this sort of hami position, not centered, but hami, and my block is made like so. So if you look, if I point out, or if I grab a stick, what I'm basically doing here is that if I'm sort of side on to you, I'm not coming here and then down and just square. I'm coming here and it's just over. See the angle? Instead of being neutral, I'm just over. This is the feeling that I want for this particular technique. And this way, I maintain my rigidity and the integrity of my stance. So feel here, simple lift and drop. This now covers my body. This is in position like so. Try the other side, lift, drop, and so forth. So just try that 1-2 drill. Step, drop, step, drop. Give that a go to land in that position. Again, keep the integrity of your posture, keep your bum in, keep the rotation of the hip just there. Don't push the shoulder out of its joint, right? Don't go too far forward. This just needs to cover the front of your body. Give that a go. Excellent. Okay, so we've done that. We've come up, we've dropped down, up, down. Now from here, thinking about the Urakenuchi. Well, if you notice, I'm in Hami. I'm here. From here, I want to get my hip. I want to drive off this leg, straighten my hip, and as I do that, make the block, make the strike rather. So feel here. Notice the technique, of course you all know this because it's hammered on a lot. The technique comes up in front of you and over the top. But the body position, because I'm in this sort of little Hami position, allows me to expand my technique in, warm, and then back. From here, Hami, warm, and back. Very, very subtle. It's a very subtle movement. Literally, from here, where I've made the Heiwanuke, now just expand. Feel your elbow expand towards your partner. Expand towards your technique. 1, 2, 3, 4. So it goes here to neutral and stays. Here to neutral and stays. So the feeling, up and drop, then out. Right? So what I want you to do now is practice that feeling. Here, oh, one other thing, just a couple of other little things. As you make this up, once this elbow's in position and pointing at the target, don't drop it. It doesn't look like a very good Urakenuchi. Feel it simply expand out. Expand, expand. The arc in this case over the top, as I mentioned before, not out. In a more natural, over. Boom, boom. So feel this feeling. Right? So from here, just practicing. Just like so. Practice that through, and then we'll talk about the transition from one to the next. Excellent. Okay, now the transition, there's multiple ways you can do this. I'm going to show you two. One of them I did for years and years and years. The second one, about 3 years ago, I was working with Sensei Robin Riley, and he just showed me another way, and I'm like, oh, that's awesome as well. So either works, yeah? But just trying it through. So from here, I've done my Uraken and I'm back in neutral. So once I do this, notice here I'm out of neutral. If I went against my wall, right, this would be turned, this would be off. After the Uraken, I'm back to my neutral position against the wall, yeah? Once I'm back in that neutral position, from here, the next technique comes up and down. So the way that I always used to do this was I used to hold my foot, make a squeeze across here, and lift to the front, and then drop. So I had that feeling. So it's almost like I'm stamping through. I'm here, lift, leave this foot where it was, and turn it just when it needed to turn. Right, like I was holding it back. So it would be here, I would hold it, I would hold it, I would hold it, and then just when it needed to turn, I would turn. So that's one feeling. The key thing, and when I'm teaching beginners, orange belts that are learning this kata, I have them one, then that same drop that we've been talking about. Higher ranks, make it more dynamic, so brown belts, thinking here, thinking across, and dropping. The other way that Sensei Riley does is from here, instead of holding this leg, he makes zenkuts, but he doesn't just turn, he drives off this back leg, so your center is already moving forward and you step and drop. And I really like that option as well. Right, so that's the idea here. If I simply push off the rear leg into zenkuts, lift and drop into technique. Both accomplish the same things, just the timing of the legs is slightly different. So what I would like you to do is from here, don't worry about your arms so much. Try my way, here, and try Sensei Riley's way. Right? my way, whoops, my way, Sensei Riley's way. Try both and give it a go. Excellent. So trying both can also help, because remember, you see movements like this going across into Jion, into Jitte, and so forth. So it's important to understand sometimes you might use one over the other, depending on what your needs are, right? Or what other kata you're pressing at the time. The way I think of the hands in my mind is that there are ways for me to get the more advanced kata in play. So if I'm a black belt, I'll often modify my hand kata, the like movements in the hand kata, which is a simpler context, to be able to get the feeling of those more advanced movements in the kata later on. Feel free to do that, yeah, if you're a black belt. Just don't test with it that way, right? But use it to train your body. That's its point. It's the whole freaking idea. So from here, we've just finished our Aken. We're going to stepping up, whichever way you do it. Make sure hami out. Then from here, try another one, stepping up. You can try it, we'll try it with Sensei Riley's way this time. Step and out. Giving just that line a go. So practice that and then come back in a second. Excellent. Okay, so what we've done is we've done our 3 Uraken strikes. From here now, the expansion. So from here, when I was young, we used to do it like a ninja. And then go. What I want you to do rather is have the feeling of just simply expanding, but expanding to infinity. 2 things happen. And again, there's multiple ways. I don't care which way you do it, right? There's some here and feet out. They look beautiful, right? Because this is doing something and not opening up your side of your body to your opponent who's there anyway. But from here, feel straight. For me, I just come straight off. This is the way I was taught by one of my instructors. It's the way that makes the most sense to me. So from here, I simply come off, expanding my elbow out. At the same time, this opposite hand rotates in place. There's a slight curve to my arm as it comes out into the tateshito. This rotates same time. My breath is the key. So my breath goes. Notice it doesn't stop. It doesn't. It just continues. This feeling. So feel. Because it's the step. So the step for the next piece is that you can either, from here, once you're in that sort of continuing to build, you can either do it my way, pull off, drive off this leg, pull off this leg, squeeze your legs together and step. Or alternatively, you can do it Sensei Riley's way. We're here. Then from here, make the stance and make it a more natural step. I think Sensei Riley's way is much more natural, but you've got to be very careful that you do not, and then step. It's all part of one continuous movement. One continuous movement. Continuous movement. So from here, practice that both ways. Think about that piece. Very good. Okay, the last part of the kata. So from here, we've just stepped through and punched. Boom, bang. So from here, we've just punched. The last step in the kata is this idea here. So it's either one to here or one to here, right? Either kibadachi or haizoko. The book says haizoko. Some people use kiba. The reason why they use kiba is because they've just gone bang, 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 bang. And what they've done is they've worked their way over almost an entire stance with. So the kibadachi gets them back in place. And the reason why that piece is ambiguous in my head is it's all the Emberson freaks. The people who are absolutely convinced that you have to get back online. And there's nothing wrong with that. right? Especially for performance-based kata. But what you do is the cheat in this kata is that you modify that particular step to get you back on the imbisin. You make it either shizentai width, or you make it kibadachi width, depending on what you need. And there is nothing wrong with that, right? Remember, kata is about teaching your body how to move, to teaching you how to have that body awareness to get yourself back to your imbisin point, right? I just don't obsess over it, right? So the thing is getting there and making that, I don't obsess over it, but I do it naturally, right? So the key point here is whether you step to kibadachi or haizoku or shizentai, it's completely up to you and completely up to your imbisin point and also within your association. Officially, shizentai is what it's supposed to be, right? Which makes sense because you've gone over one hip width, right? Basically coming up the line. If you've gone over further, probably your stances are too wide. So from here, from this last punch, feel in. Notice here I'm not rocking. I keep my weight centered over this hip. I just step up. From here, you simply place and rotate round. So again, checking kibadachi, 1, 2, then from here, yoriashi is simply the lift and the shift. We'll get to that in a sec, because there's one other point I want to make. So the way Kanazawa Sensei had us do this, and also my instructor, Sensei Guichina, had us do this, I really like. It's more a talky kind of movement. So from here, what they used to have us do was we step up, also check, make sure as you step, don't leave everything behind. Get it, behind? Yeah, okay. So as you step up, keep here, right? Keep this motion. And what he used to do was they used to have us here, turn this foot, but keep my body rotated this way, then rotate with all that torque into position. So it was this idea of being here, step up, rotate, keep here, then rotate round. And I kind of like that approach. It's not quite as stable as sort of the nice dynamic movement, but understanding that as a training aid to help develop that rotational power that you can, or the torque that you can generate in that, is really useful. So having the idea here, and of course as you get better at it, it becomes smoother. 1, 2. Now from here, as you step, kibadachi is an outside tension stance. I simply lift and everything shifts. I simply lift and everything shifts. So from here, I simply lift and everything shifts. I lift and everything shifts. So what I would like you to do is from here, practice that step up, practice the rotation, boom, boom, that piece. So with that, give it a go. Excellent. Okay, so from here we've just finished the kata. Which foot do you step up with? Naturally it's to your left, but check your imbisin. Step up whichever way you need to have that body awareness. More correctly, it's of course stepping up, making your way. And with that, that's Heian Sandan in 3 easy lessons. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope there's pieces that you agree with. I hope there's some stuff you haven't seen before or haven't thought about. And moreover, I hope it enhances your kata and makes it better, right? Nothing here is changing any association's rules or regulations in terms of the actual functioning or the performance of the kata. What it is talking about is how to make the body dynamics move and make it work for you a little bit better. At least that's my hope. So with that, have an awesome day, and I'll talk to you again soon. Hey, us. Thank you.